The Aurelian Dominion spanned 13 star systems and claimed dominion over 41 sentient species. Humanity was not one of them. Humanity had been a rival, and in the grand cold calculus of interstellar war, rivals were either absorbed or shattered. Humanity was shattered. What remained were scattered settlements on barely habitable moons and the dregs of their population living in the service shafts and lower-deck ghettos of the Dominion's great space stations. They were the janitors, the pipe fitters, the waste disposal crews. They were the ghosts in the machine, the people you looked through, not at. Nowhere was this division more stark than on the Aurora Spire. The Spire was not a mere station. It was a fortress, a palace, and a statement hanging suspended within the swirling incandescent clouds of the Celestial Veil Nebula. It was the seat of power, and its new occupant was the young Empress Aratus, who had ascended to the Amethyst throne 3 months prior, following the sudden sterile and deeply suspicious death of her father. And on the lowest technical level, Subdeck Gamma Noah Hale was mopping floors. The floor was a grating of dull, functional metal, perpetually stained with leaked coolant and grime. Noah's mop, a high-density synthetic fiber bundle, was ancient. He moved with an efficient rhythmic grace that looked like resignation, but was in fact practiced control. Mop, bucket, ring, repeat. He wore the dull gray fatigues of environmental services. To the automated security drones that floated past, he registered as Bioorganic Human Maintenance. Designation 7N Hale. Status nominal. His thoughts, however, were anything but nominal. While his hands scrubbed at a particularly stubborn chemical spill, his mind was cataloging the patrol routes of the Imperial Sentinels on the level above. He noted the slight hesitation in the left actuator of Drone 33B. Its joint was probably failing a weakness. He registered the precise decibel shift in the station's core hum, indicating a power fluctuation of 0.2% in the auxiliary conduits. He finished the section of floor, leaning on the mop handle for a permissible 30-second rest. His eyes, a plain, unmemorable gray, closed. He began his internal diagnostics. It was a routine he ran 4 times a day. He called it a neurocheck. He sent a silent internal command, and a phantom sensation, faint as a spider's thread, traced the line of his spine up to the base of his skull. There, nestled against his brainstem, was a piece of extinct, pre-war human technology. It was a biological implant, old and dangerously powerful, a relic of a time when humanity had fought with mind as well as steel. He flexed his mental muscles, sorting the flood of sensory data from the spire, filtering it through the implant. He felt the vibration of 1,000 lives, the thrum of the great engines, the whisper of the recycled air. He also felt the static, the interference, the thing that had plagued the upper levels for months. It was a psychic scream, a field of raw, undirected terror that coiled around the royal deck like a serpent. The Aurelians, for all their technological might, were psychically blunt. They called it Empress's stress, a simple political malady. Noah, whose implant was designed to listen, knew better. It wasn't stressful. It was a signal. It was artificial. And it was centered on Empress Aratus. Up in the Imperial penthouse, surrounded by silks and holographic star charts, Aratus was very much awake. She had been awake for 53 hours. Or perhaps 54. The numbers blurred. She sat on the edge of her enormous suspended bed, her small frame lost in a robe of state silver. Her pale hair was plastered to her forehead with a sheen of cold sweat. Beside her, a personal medical drone hovered, its soft blue light projecting her vitals onto the wall. Heart rate elevated. REM sleep detected 0 minutes 0 seconds. "Your Imperial Majesty," a smooth, synthesized voice cooed. "A mild sedative is 98% advisable for optimal cognitive function." Aratus waved a dismissive hand, her fingers trembling. "No, no more sedatives. They do not work." They did not work. Nothing did. The moment her eyes closed, The moment her consciousness began to drift, it would come. It was not a nightmare. A nightmare was a story the brain told itself. This was an invasion. It was a field of ice that clamped down on her mind. She would see images of her father, his face contorting his eyes, wide and accusing. She would hear whispers, thousands of them speaking, in a language she almost knew, telling her she was a failure, a fraud, an imposter. Her advisors, old-scaled and male, blamed the pressure of the throne. "The burden of leadership is heavy, Your Majesty." Grand Chancellor Therix had told her that morning, his voice a gravelly monotone. "But you must rest. The Dominion requires a clear-minded ruler." She knew what they were doing. They were using her exhaustion against her, pushing through edicts and decrees she was too tired to fight. Edicts like the new Human Relocation Act, which restricted human workers from accessing any deck above sublevel beta, effectively ghettoizing them further. Like the Scholastic Purity Mandate, barring any human from higher education within the Dominion's core worlds. The court despised humans. They were a reminder of a war the Aurelians had won, but not easily. They were seen as emotional, erratic, and fundamentally weak. And now rumors of a human underground were growing, whispers of sabotage and rebellion, which only strengthened the court's iron-fisted policies. Aratus was too tired to argue, too broken to resist. She stood pacing the cold floor. She was the most powerful woman in 41 species, and she could not sleep. The dream field, as Noah Hale called it in his secret thoughts, was tightening around her. The incident occurred at precisely 3:15 in the morning Spire Standard Time. Noah was sorting recyclables in the Gamma-level depot when his wristcom buzzed, the vibration sharp against his skin. It was not his supervisor. It was a priority summons from the royal deck. He stared at it. This was not possible. No environmental services staff, especially not a human, was permitted on the royal deck after sundown without a level 9 security escort. This summons was direct. "Hale, 7N, he spoke into the comm. "Auxiliary energy conduit in the Royal Hall East Wing has overloaded." A clipped, synthetic voice replied. "Minor plasma discharge. Biocontaminant cleanup required. Your designation was closest." Closest was a lie. He was 40 floors below. Closest available was the truth. Closest expendable was the subtext. "On my way," Noah said, his voice flat. He grabbed his primary kit, the heavy-duty mop, the absorbent gels, the neutralization spray. He stepped into a service lift, his mind racing. This was a breach of protocol. A breach meant opportunity, or a trap. The lift ascended with sickening speed, a journey he had never been permitted to make. When the doors opened, he was blinded. The royal deck was not made of dull metal. It was polished obsidian, gleaming marble, and soft ambient light that seemed to emanate from the air itself. The ceiling was a vault of transparent crystal, showing the full, breathtaking majesty of the Celestial Veil Nebula outside. It was beautiful, and it made Noah's skin crawl. "This way, human." 2 Imperial sentinels, 8-foot-tall figures of gleaming silver and blue armor, flanked him. Their voices were harsh, synthesized. They held plasma pikes. They did not look at him, but at a point just past his head. "The spill is designated. Clean it. Do not look at any member of the Imperial Court. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not deviate from the marked path. Your presence here is a biological necessity. It will be forgotten. Is that clear?" "Clear as a freshly wiped window," Noah muttered. The sentinels bristled, but they were programmed for efficiency, not parsing human sarcasm. They shoved him forward. He saw the damage. A wall conduit had indeed blown. It was a small explosion, but it had sprayed conductive plasma and foul-smelling coolant across a 30-foot radius of pristine white marble. It was a mess. "You have 10 minutes, the lead sentinel stated, "before we vent the area." "Right. 10 minutes. No problem," Noah said, pushing his bucket. This was absurd. He was a trained operative with a synaptic implant, capable of running battle simulations in picoseconds, and he was about to scrub a floor for aliens who thought he was slightly more intelligent than his mop. He got to work. He spread the neutralization gel which foamed and hissed, absorbing the plasma. He was on his hands and knees wiping the final residue when he heard the scream. It was not a shout. It was a sound of pure, unadulterated terror, high and thin. The sentinels snapped to attention, raising their pikes. Empress, return to your chambers. The area is not secure. A door, hidden in the wall, slid open. Empress Aratus stumbled out. She was barefoot, clad only in her thin silver nightrobe. Her eyes were wide and vacant, staring at something in the hall that wasn't there. "It's here," she whispered, backing away from an invisible threat. "It's in the walls. Father, no, I didn't mean to." She was hallucinating, caught in the grip of the dream field, walking straight into the chemical spill. "Your Majesty," the sentinel barked, taking a step. But his heavy armor and program protocols made him slow. Noah reacted without thinking. He was a ghost, invisible. He moved from his crouch, intercepting her path. He did not intend to touch her. He intended to block her, to steer her away from the corrosive gel still active on the floor. But she was moving faster than he expected, propelled by her panic. She tripped over her own feet, her momentum carrying her forward. She fell directly into him. The collision was jarring. She was small, light, and trembling like a leaf. Her bare feet landed on the tops of his boots, her hands grabbed his shoulders, and her face buried itself in the rough, chemical-soaked fabric of his fatigues. And then the universe shifted. For Noah, it was a psychic detonation. The moment her skin touched his implant lit up. The ambient psychic scream he had always felt the dream field suddenly had a focal point. It was her. It poured from her, a torrent of fear and pain. And as it hit him, his implant, the ancient human tech designed to adapt and survive, did something instinctive. It grounded the charge. It absorbed the static, the terror, the whispers. It took the overwhelming chaotic energy and dissipated it, shunting it harmlessly into his own controlled neural pathways. For Aratus, it was like falling off a cliff into a feather bed. 1 second, the monster from her nightmares was reaching for her, its claws made of her father's judgment. The next, silence. The ice in her mind melted. The whispers stopped. The crushing weight that had sat on her chest for 3 months vanished. For the first time since her coronation, her mind was her own. It was quiet. It was empty. The exhaustion of 128 sleepless nights slammed into her at once. Her trembling stopped. Her breathing, which had been a ragged gasp, deepened into a slow, steady rhythm. In the arms of a human janitor, surrounded by corrosive chemicals and 2 stunned sentinels, Empress Aratus fell fast asleep. There was a full 5 seconds of absolute silence, broken only by the distant hum of the spire and the soft, even breathing of the Empress. Noah Hale was frozen. He was on one knee, holding the unconscious ruler of the Aurelian Dominion. His fatigues were damp with her sweat and his own. His mind, usually a fortress of strategy, was completely, utterly blank, save for one repeating thought. "I am going to be executed. I am going to be executed in so many interesting ways." The sentinels finally rebooted their tactical brains. "Human!" The lead guard's voice was a roar. "Release her, step away. You are in violation of—" He paused, his programming clearly struggling. What exactly was Noah in violation of? Catching a falling Empress? Unauthorized slumber holding? "I'm not exactly holding her, fellas," Noah said, his voice strained. He tried to gently disengage, but her hands were still fisted in his uniform. She's doing the holding, and she's asleep." The other sentinel moved in, prodding Noah's shoulder with the humming tip of his plasma pike. "Release her, or we will terminate you." "Look, I'd love to, really. But she's out cold. You zap me, you zap her. And somehow I think the paperwork for that is worse than this. The lead sentinel's head twitched, communicating with unseen handlers. More sentinels arrived, flooding the hall, followed by a frantic-looking, multi-limbed creature in medical robes. "A doctor make way!" it shrieked. The doctor skittered to a halt, its many delicate antennae quivering. It stared at the scene. It looked at the medical readouts now being projected by Herodotus' personal drone, which had followed her from the bedroom. The drone's blue light was steady. The vitals on the wall were, for the first time in months, perfect. Heart rate normal, blood pressure normal, neural activity, deep delta wave sleep. "She is stable," the doctor chirped, bewildered. It turned its multifaceted eyes on Noah. "What did you do?" "I mopped," Noah said, exasperated. "She fell, I caught her, end of story." "Do not move, human," Wah, the lead sentinel, commanded, though Noah had made no indication of moving. They stood there for another full minute, a bizarre tableau: 2 sentinels, a flustered doctor, a janitor, and the sleeping Empress he was holding like a child who had fallen asleep during a tantrum. "We must move her to the medbay," the doctor finally decided. "How?" the sentinel asked. "Gently," Noah suggested. "You want to try and peel her off me, be my guest. But if she wakes up and starts screaming again, that's on you." The lead sentinel made a decision. He signaled to the others. "Secure the human, lift them both. Move to the Imperial bedchamber, now." Noah felt 2 pairs of powerful metallic hands grip his arms and back. He was lifted with Herodotus still clinging to him as if he were nothing but an accessory. "You know," Noah said to the armored shoulder next to him as they marched him down the hall, "this is going to look really, really weird on my performance review." The next morning the Imperial Court was convened. The Great Hall was packed. Every highborn Aurelian, every allied species ambassador, every robed member of the judiciary was present. They whispered behind their hands, their voices a low hiss of rumor and scandal. They had all heard. The Empress had spent the night, or at least the last 6 hours of it, clinging to a human maintenance worker. Grand Chancellor Theryx stood at the foot of the amethyst throne, his face a mask of cold fury. He had already ordered the human Hale to be detained in the high-security holding cells pending interrogation. But the Empress, who had awoken 2 hours ago, looking refreshed, calm, and more lucid than he had ever seen her, had countermanded his order. The doors at the end of the hall opened. Empress Herodotus entered. She was not in her heavy robes of state. She wore a simple, functional gown of deep blue. Her pale hair was tied back. Her eyes, no longer shadowed by exhaustion, were clear and sharp. She looked, Theryx noted, with a deep sense of unease like her father. She walked to the throne, but did not sit. She stood before it, her hands clasped. "Honored members of the court," she began. Her voice was quiet, but it carried amplified by the hall's acoustics. "For 93 days I have been unwell." The court rustled. This was unexpected. "I have been unable to sleep. I have been plagued by nightmares, by confusion. I have been, in short, unfit to rule." More whispers. This was a weakness. Theryx almost smiled. "That changed last night," Herodotus continued, her voice cutting through the noise. "Last night I slept. I slept for 6 hours undisturbed. I awoke clear of mind and strong of body. The affliction that has clouded my judgment is gone." She paused, letting the silence stretch. "The source of this clarity is complex, but the catalyst is simple. It seems my affliction, this dream field, as the medical staff have dubbed it, is a form of psychic interference." She turned her gaze to Noah Hale, who stood between 2 massive sentinels, still in his dirty work fatigues, looking profoundly out of place. "This human," Herodotus said, pointing. "This maintenance worker. For reasons our finest minds cannot yet explain, his proximity dampens the field. When he is holding me, it disappears entirely." The court erupted. "Scandal, human filth, she is bewitched." Theryx raised a hand. "Your Majesty, this is madness. The human must have done something. He is clearly a spy, a saboteur from the human underground. He is a janitor Grand Chancellor, Eurydice said, her voice dropping, gaining an edge of steel. He was vetted as all service staff are. He has mopped floors on this spire for 3 years. He has done nothing but his job. And last night he caught me when I fell. She looked at Noah. He met her gaze, his own expression unreadable, though there was a flicker of dark humor in his eyes. The court is right about one thing, Eurydice said. It is a scandal. It is unseemly. It is beneath the dignity of my station. She took a breath. But I am also pragmatic. I need to sleep to rule this dominion. And I will not be a slave to nightmares, nor to the agendas of those who would use my exhaustion against me. She turned back to the court. Therefore, by the power of the Amethyst Throne, I issue this decree. Noah, Hail Designation 7N, is hereby stripped of his title in environmental services. A murmur of approval. He would be executed then. He is granted the new title of Night Attendant. He will be given chambers adjoining my own. He will be fed, clothed, and protected by my personal guard. His sole duty will be to be present in my chambers from sundown to sunrise. He will be the only person permitted near me while I sleep. The silence that followed was so profound. Noah could hear the nebula crackling outside the crystal dome. The aristocracy was stunned. They stared aghast at the scene, their new young Empress clear-eyed and defiant. And the human janitor she had just declared in all but name was her royal bedwarmer. Eurydice finally sat on the amethyst throne. She looked small, but the chair no longer swallowed her. The health of the Empress is the health of the Dominion, she said, her voice ringing with finality. And this Empress intends to get a full 8 hours. The chambers given to Noah Hale were by any human standard the very definition of luxury. They were 3 times the size of his entire subdeck habitat, furnished with soft alien fabrics, and featured a wall that was a perfect floor-to-ceiling view of the celestial Veil Nebula. He was also a prisoner. 2 Imperial sentinels stood guard at his door. They did not speak. They did not move. They just were. His new uniform was a set of simple, well-tailored black silks, a vast improvement on his gray fatigues, but just as much a sign of his station. He was no longer a janitor. He was a piece of royal property. The first night was a masterpiece of human awkwardness and imperial embarrassment. He was escorted into the Empress's main bedchamber at precisely sundown. Eurydice was already there, pretending to read a data slate. She wore a simple, high-necked nightgown. The room was vast, the suspended bed in the center, looking like an altar. "Your Majesty," Noah said, giving a shallow bow that was just shy of being disrespectful. Eurydice didn't look up from the slate. "Attendant, you will stand over there, by the far wall, until I am ready to sleep." "Got it," Noah said, moving to the indicated wall. "You just let me know when you're feeling sleepy. I'll be here practicing my standing." She shot him a glare. He just smiled, a faint, unthreatening quirk of his lips. They remained that way for 2 hours. Silence stretched between them, thick and uncomfortable. Noah watched the nebula. Eurydice presumably read the same sentence on her slate 120 times. Finally, she let out an exasperated sigh, a very human sound of frustration. "This is absurd." "Couldn't agree more, Your Majesty. The acoustics in here, however, are top-notch. I can hear you breathing from 30 feet away. It's lovely." "That was not an invitation to speak," she snapped. "My mistake. I mistook your 'this is absurd' for a conversation starter. Humans do that. We see an absurdity, we feel the need to point it out. It's one of our many, many flaws. You'll find the full list in the Human Relocation Act, Section 4. She put the slate down, her pale cheeks flushed. "You are treading a very thin line, attendant." "It's the only line I've got," he said, shrugging. "So, Are we doing this, or are we staring at each other until sunrise because I'm getting paid either way? Aretta stood. She looked at the enormous empty bed, then at him. Her entire body radiated humiliation. She was the Empress of the Dominion, and she was about to curl up in the arms of a man who yesterday was scrubbing her floors. "The medical staff have provided a chair," she said stiffly. A large, padded recliner had been placed near the head of the bed. It was not comfortable, but it was not the floor. "Great," Noah said. He sat. "Comfy." Aratus climbed into the bed. She lay on her side facing him, her body rigid. You will not speak of this to anyone." "Your Majesty, my social life consists of 2 sentinels who think I'm a biohazard. Who exactly am I going to tell?" She did not answer. She closed her eyes. The now familiar tension began to fill the room as the dream field gathered, sensing her vulnerability. He could feel it through his implant, a cold static. Her breathing hitched. "It's starting, isn't it?" he said, his voice softer. She nodded, her eyes squeezed shut. "It always does." "Okay," he stood. "This is the weird part. My apologies in advance." He sat on the edge of the vast bed, a careful foot of space between them. "The sentinels are right outside. The medical drone is active. You're safe." "It doesn't care if I'm safe," she whispered. He sighed. He shifted, turning, and leaned back against the headboard. "All right, Empress. Come on. Bedtime." He opened his arms. She stared at him for a long moment, her expression a mix of shame and desperate, crushing fatigue. Finally, she moved. She uncurled from her tight ball and slid across the sheets, a slow, agonizing crawl of royal defeat. She did not embrace him. She lay beside him, her head resting tentatively on his chest, right over his heart. Her hands were fisted at her sides. He, in turn, rested one hand lightly on her shoulder, the other on the mattress. It was the most chaste, clinical, and profoundly strange embrace in the history of the galaxy. 1 second passed. 2. He felt the change. The static field assaulting her mind touched him, and his implant, like a lightning rod, drew it in and grounded it. The tension drained out of her body like water from a punctured vessel. Her breathing ragged and shallow deepened. Within 10 seconds, she was deeply, soundlessly asleep. Noah stared at the ceiling, a very small, very warm Empress, breathing steadily against his chest. "Well," he whispered to the empty, opulent room, "this is a new career path." In the daylight hours, Noah was a prisoner. But in the 8 hours he was off duty, he was a prisoner with a purpose. While Aratus ran the empire, Noah was escorted back to his luxury cell to rest. And it was there, in the blind spot of the room's single audio sensor, that he did his real work. He sat on the floor, legs crossed, and meditated. He wasn't seeking peace. He was opening a channel. His implant was more than a shield. It was a transmitter. He focused his thoughts, encoding them in a tight-burst psychic signal, a method so old the Aurelians had no technology to even detect it. He aimed his signal at a specific comm relay deep in the guts of the Spire's maintenance network. His signal was a simple ping. The response came 2 hours later. It was not a sound, but a feeling, a sudden sharp pressure behind his eyes. He closed his own. A face appeared in his mind's eye. She was lean, dark-haired, with scars on her knuckles, and eyes that had seen too much. Sarah Keene. "You're late, Noah," her mental voice snapped. "The council was getting nervous. They thought you'd been compromised." "I was busy," Noah replied, his tone dry. "Got a promotion. I'm the Empress's new teddy bear. It's a long story." There was a pause. "Explain." "Your mission was to access the Spire's core systems, find the source of the psychic disturbance and use it to fracture her mind. You were supposed to be a janitor, not a concubine." "First, concubine is a strong word. I am more of a sentient pillow. Second, I have made more progress in 2 days than we've made in 2 years. I'm in." I'm in her head, literally. What have you learned? The disturbance is real. Noah transmitted his thoughts, sharpening. They call it the dream field. It's not random, it's a construct. It's artificial, powerful, and it's being aimed at her like a weapon. I can feel its structure when I'm on duty. It's designed to induce terror, paranoia, and dependency. Dependency on what? On them. The court. The ones who advise her when she's too tired to think. Sarah's mental presence felt like a tightening fist. Good. The plan is better than we hoped. You're in a position to control the weapon. You can amplify it. You can break her. You can turn her into a screaming, incoherent child on the eve of the unification ceremony. The entire Dominion will fracture. It's the revenge we promised our people. Sarah, it's not a simple weapon. It's intricate. Then learn it. Learn it and use it. Or is the silk uniform making you soft, Noah? I'm not soft. He snapped back, his control wavering for an instant. I'm just saying we need to be precise. Be precise then, but be quick. The underground is moving. We've waited long enough. The connection broke. Sarah was gone. Noah opened his eyes, the sterile luxury of his room, feeling colder than before. His mission was clear. Get close, learn the weapon, break the target. He thought of the small, warm weight in his arms from the night before, the sound of her steady breathing. This is a problem, he muttered to himself. Grand Chancellor Therix watched the surveillance feed. It was a thermal, non-invasive scan of the Empress's bedchamber. He saw the two heat signatures, one, the Empress curled in on herself, her temperature a steady, healthy baseline. The other, the human lying beside her, his signature just as steady. It is an abomination, hissed Count Vesh, a thin reptilian courtier at his side. She defiles the throne by consorting with that mammal. She is not consorting, Therix said, his voice a low rumble. She is sleeping, and a sleeping Empress is a stable Empress. But the source of the stability is unacceptable. The people are whispering, Chancellor. They say she is weak, controlled by a human. She is weak because she wasn't controlled, Therix corrected him. The whisper engine was calibrated to make her dependent on the Council. On me. It was supposed to make her seek our guidance. Instead, it just broke her. And now this human fixes her. Vesh shuddered. What is he? He is a janitor, Therix said. And that is what is so troubling. We ran his profile. He is nobody. Born in the Sol Prime ghetto. Minimal education. No criminal record. He is human. Average. And yet, he nullifies a technology that has shaped our dynasty for a century. The Whisper Engine was the Dominion's greatest secret. Buried deep in the Spire's core, it was an ancient device, a relic of a forgotten war. It was a psychic amplifier meant to bolster the will of the Emperor, to project his authority across the stars. But Therix's predecessors had found a more subtle use for it. They had tuned it, reversed it, using it to seed thoughts, to shape dreams, to ensure the compliance of their heirs. It was the ultimate tool of control. And this human, this dirt scrubber, simply by being there, broke it. We must remove him, Vesh insisted. We have tried. Therix pointed to a corner of the room on the feed, where a silver obelisk now stood. That is a Series 9 somatic modulator. It emits a sonic field guaranteed to induce sleep in 99% of known species. We activated it last night while the human was in his quarters. The Empress did not sleep. She began screaming within an hour. Then we must, Vesh lowered his voice, remove him permanently. Therix turned his cold reptilian eyes on the Count. And what do you suppose happens to the Empress when her remedy is found dead? She is clear-headed now. She is strong. She is looking at state documents she has ignored for months. She is questioning the Human Relocation Act. She is becoming her father. He tapped a talon on the console. No, we cannot kill him. We must understand him. And in the meantime, we will proceed with the unification ceremony. The technicians have assured me they can adjust the engine's frequency. They will boost its power past the human's ability to interfere. We will not just give her nightmares. We will give her a new personality, one of perfect obedience. The nights fell into a strange, shared rhythm. The ritual of awkwardness faded, replaced by a weary pragmatism. Aratus would enter, Noah would be waiting. He would sit in the chair, and she would lie in the bed, and they would talk. At first, the conversations were brief, guarded. She asked him about the lower decks. He gave her clipped, sarcastic answers. But his answers were also honest. "What is it like?" she asked one night, her voice small in the darkness. "Down there." "It's gray," he said, staring at the nebula. "It's loud. The air tastes like recycled metal, but it's ours. You don't get a lot in the Dominion, but you get your own. Your own music, your own food, your own jokes. Humans are good at that. We can build a home in a dumpster." "You hate us, don't you?" Noah was quiet for a long time. "Hate is a strong word, Your Majesty. Hate is for equals. You can't hate a natural disaster. A hurricane, a plague. The Dominion is just a fact of life. We survive it. We don't have to like it." His honesty was brutal. And to Aratus, who had been fed a diet of honeyed lies and calculated flattery, her entire life it was intoxicating. She had never met anyone who was not afraid of her, or who did not want something from her. Noah, it seemed, wanted nothing but to get through the night. She began to confide in him. It started as a trickle. "They want me to sign the new trade decree for the Cygnus sector," she said, her voice laced with fatigue. "Therix says it's standard, but the figures don't add up. They're routing 20% of the profits to a security fund that doesn't seem to have a budget." "So veto it," Noah said, as if it were simple. "I can't. Not without cause. Not without proof. If I challenge him, the entire council will side with him. They'll say I'm unstable again." "So you're a prisoner too?" She turned to look at him. "Yes, I suppose I am." The more she spoke, the more Noah learned. She told him about her father, not the strong emperor of the public broadcasts, but a tired, paranoid man who, in his final months, had also complained of nightmares, who had started to question the council just as she was doing. "They said his heart failed," she whispered, her voice trembling. "He was in perfect health. They said it was the stress, the same thing they said about me." "Stress," Noah repeated the word, tasting like ash. He was holding her now, his arm under her pillow, his hand resting on her back. The duty had become a habit. "Right." And as he held her as she drifted into the safe, dreamless sleep he provided, he did his real work. He let his implant sink just a little into the pathways of her mind. He was not reading her thoughts. He was a ghost walker tracing the edges of her consciousness. And there at the periphery, he felt it. The whisper engine. It was a vast, complex structure of pure psychic energy. It was a machine. He could feel its gears, its levers, its operators. He felt the commands, the insidious whispers that were meant to shape her. "You are weak. You are alone. Therix is wise. Obey." His implant, designed to fight in a war that ended decades ago, began to map it. He recorded its frequencies. He noted its access points. He was building a schematic. He was finding its weaknesses. He was gathering the data for Sarah. But as he mapped the weapon, he felt the person it was aimed at. He felt Aratus's loneliness, her sharp intelligence, her fear, her stubborn, buried core of strength. He was supposed to be building a weapon to destroy her. Instead, he found himself wanting to build her a shield. He sent the data to Sarah a week later. The transmission was cold clinical. "Structural analysis of the target dream field. Source appears to be a localized high-energy psychic construct. Recommend focusing on the primary harmonic C-attached data packet." Sarah's reply was immediate and triumphant. "This is it, Noah. This is the key. With this, we don't just break her. We can hijack the whole system. We can broadcast a feedback loop that will shatter the mind of every Aurelian on the spire. We can burn the whole damn palace to the ground psychically. This is our bomb. The unification ceremony is in 2 weeks. That will be our day." Noah closed the connection. He looked at his hands. They were shaking. Burn the whole palace to the ground. Shatter every mind. That included the medical staff, the civilian aides, the children. That included Erides. He was a soldier, a spy, a tool of vengeance. But he had not signed up for this. The assassination attempt was almost comically inept. A maintenance drone, one of the thousands that roamed the spire, entered Aredis's chambers during the day ostensibly to clean the air vents. It was a simple task, but this drone had been modified. When Aradis returned from a grueling council meeting, the drone whirred to life, its small maintenance claws replaced with a high-energy cutting laser. It was fast, but Noah, who had been resting in his adjoining room, was faster. His implant picked up the surge of abnormal energy from the drone's power cell. He burst into her room, grabbing a heavy, ornamental statue from a pedestal, just as the drone fired. The laser sliced through the air where Aradis had been a second before. Noah didn't hesitate. He threw the statue with all his strength. It was a terrible throw, but it connected. The heavy bronze statue crashed into the drone, sending it smashing against the wall. Sentinels flooded the room. Pikes charged, responding to the commotion. Aradis was on the floor, breathing hard, staring at the smoking, destroyed drone. Noah stood over her, breathing just as hard, the useless, heavy statue still in his hand. He looked at the statue, then at the smoking drone, then at the sentinels. "The ventilation system is getting aggressive," he panted. That night she was not calm. She was vibrating with terror and delayed shock. When he entered the bedchamber, she was pacing, her hands clenched. "It was Therix," she said, her voice a low, furious hiss. "It had to be. He's trying to silence me." "Or it was just a bad drone," Noah said, sitting in his usual chair. He, too, was shaken. The attack had been clumsy. Therix was not clumsy, which meant someone else, or Therix wanting it to look clumsy. "Stop defending them," she cried. "Stop being so calm. I'm not calm, Your Majesty. I'm just very, very tired. And I'm pretty sure I dislocated a shoulder throwing that ugly piece of metal." She stopped pacing and looked at him. Really looked at him. "You saved my life." "I was saving my job. You die, I'm back to mopping floors, and I hate mopping floors." She didn't smile at his joke. She walked over to him, her eyes searching for him. The fear was still there, but beneath it was something else. A new, raw determination. She didn't wait for him to sit on the bed. She didn't wait for the ritual. She reached out and grabbed the front of his silk shirt, pulling him to his feet. She buried her face in his chest, holding on to him, with a desperate white-knuckled strength. This was not the chaste, awkward embrace of their first nights. This was a drowning woman clinging to a piece of driftwood. "They're all trying to kill me," she whispered into his shirt, her voice muffled. "My court, my advisors, they all hate me. They all want me gone." She pulled back just enough to look up at him, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "If all of them, all of your species, if they all turn against me, will your people hate me too?" The question hit him like a physical blow. "Will your people hate me? Our people are planning to murder you. Your Majesty, I'm the one holding the bomb." He looked down at her, at this small, terrified, powerful woman who smelled faintly of ozone from the laser blast. He saw the target Sarah wanted him to break. He saw that Empress Therix wanted to transform into a puppet. He saw the lonely, intelligent woman who just wanted to sleep. He couldn't tell her the truth, but he couldn't lie. Not completely. He settled for a classic human deflection. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice softer than he intended. "Right now, I'm the only person in the galaxy who doesn't want anything from you, except maybe a little quiet." He gently, very gently put his arms around her. You're safe. I've got you. Just breathe. She held on tighter, as if she could burrow into his very bones. And he held her back, his mind a warring, chaotic mess. Across the spire, Therix was meeting with his technicians. "The unification ceremony is in 1 week," he said. "The broadcast will be live. Every citizen in the Dominion will be watching." "The adjustments are difficult, Chancellor," the lead technician, a being of pure energy in a containment suit, crackled. "The human's dampening field is erratic. We can boost the power, yes. We can overwhelm him. But it will be a blunt instrument. It could damage her." "I do not care if it damages her," Tharix spat. "I care that it controls her. I want a blank slate. An Empress who reads the scripts we give her, who signs the edicts we write, who smiles for the cameras. This ceremony is our only chance to do it publicly. Her mind will be open-focused on her speech. We will implant a new core personality. Submissive, loyal, simple." "It will be done, Chancellor," the technician said. At the same time, in the bowels of Subdeck Gamma, Sarah Keene was meeting with her cell. "The data from Hale is confirmed," she said, her voice a low, excited rasp. "The unification ceremony. When she begins her speech, the whisper engine, as he calls it, will be at peak output. That's when we strike. We'll use the access codes Noah gave us to reverse the polarity, but not just on her. We'll broadcast it. A single pure psychic scream. Every Aurelian on this station will be neutralized. Permanently. The spire will fall. The revolution begins." A young operative looked up, his face pale. "But Hale. He's in the room with her. He'll be at ground zero." Sarah's eyes were cold. "Then he will be a martyr for the cause, a hero of humanity." In the royal bedchamber, Aratus had finally exhaustedly fallen asleep in Noah's arms. Noah Hale lay awake, staring at the swirling colors of the nebula, a sleeping Empress in his arms, caught between two apocalypses, with only himself to blame. The great hall of the Aurora Spire was a spectacle of imperial power. Light from the celestial veil. Nebula streamed through a ceiling of pure, miles-wide crystal, refracting into rainbows that danced over the assembled delegates of 41 species. Trillions of souls across 13 star systems watched through a live, multi-spectrum broadcast. Noah Hale watched from a shadowed alcove, 70 feet from the stage, flanked by two bored-looking sentinels. His new station in life had not earned him a seat. He was the night attendant, a royal curiosity, the human pet. He had been escorted from his chambers, separate from the Empress, and placed here, like a piece of inconvenient breathing furniture. "You will remain here, human," the sentinel captain had intoned. "You will not move. You will not speak. You will not be seen." "Story of my life," Noah had replied, leaning against the marble. His eyes found Aratus. She stood near the great amethyst throne, conferring with a nervous aide. She wore the formal, high-collared robes of her station, her pale hair bound in intricate loops. She looked regal, powerful, and utterly terrified. Before they had taken her, she had looked back at him just once. It was not the look of an Empress to a servant. It was the look of a person. "I am scared. Stay close." Noah gave a short, almost imperceptible nod. He could feel it. His implant buried at the base of his skull was humming like a tuning fork, resonating with the spire's ambient energy. But today, the hum was different. It was climbing, tightening. The whisper engine was spooling up. Something was about to happen. Sarah's plan. Therix's plan. He was standing on the X where two tsunamis were scheduled to meet. The herald's voice boomed. "All rise for Her Imperial Majesty, Empress Aratus, Sovereign of the Aurelian Dominion." A wave of sound and motion as the delegates rose. Aratus took a visible breath, straightened her small shoulders, and walked to the crystal podium. The broadcast was live. She placed her hands on the podium. Her voice, amplified, was clear and steady. Delegates, citizens of the Dominion, we gather today not simply to celebrate our history but to forge our future, a future of unity of strength. She was doing well. Her words were her own. Noah felt a strange, stupid kernel of pride. And then Therix made his move. Noah felt it before he saw it. A wave of psychic energy, cold and precise as a scalpel, lanced through the hall. It was invisible, inaudible, but to his implant, it was a scream. It was the whisper engine punching through the ambient noise, its frequency spiking to a level he had never felt before. It hit Aratus. "A future of," she faltered. Her hands gripped the podium. Her eyes, which had been bright, glazed over, becoming dull, vacant. A new voice came out of her mouth. It was her own, but it was hollow, empty, a puppet. "It is the duty of the weak to submit," she said, her voice a perfect, passionless monotone. "It is the destiny of the strong to rule. Our future depends on purity. Human influence, their weakness, their emotion must be purged for the good of the Dominion. True unity comes from true obedience." The hall rippled in confusion. The human delegates, few as they were, looked horrified. Grand Chancellor Therix, watching from the high balcony, permitted himself the smallest, coldest of smiles. His plan was working. The new compliant personality was being imprinted. But he, too, had underestimated the chaos. At the exact second of Therix's psychic victory, Sarah Keene launched her attack. If Therix's signal was a scalpel, Sarah's was a bomb. A raw, chaotic feedback loop built from Noah's own data slammed into the spire's core. It hit the whisper engine, not as a command, but as a virus. A psychic scream of pure, concentrated human rage. The two signals collided. The whisper engine caught between a precision command and a brute force assault, shattered psychically. On the podium, Aratus was no longer a puppet. She was a battlefield. She threw her head back and screamed. It was not a sound of fear. It was a sound of pure, unadulterated agony. She clawed at her own temples, her royal composure gone, replaced by a raw animal pain. "It's burning, get it out, get it out!" In the hall, the effect was devastating. The psychic backlash no longer focused, washed over the crowd. The Aurelians, the most psychically sensitive, cried out, clutching their heads. Delegates collapsed. The live broadcast feed fractured into static, showing the galaxy only an image of their Empress shrieking as the Dominion descended into chaos. Therix's smile vanished, replaced by horror. "What is this? Stop this signal! Stop it!" In the alcove, the two sentinels by Noah's side staggered their systems, trying to compensate for the psychic static. Noah didn't hesitate. This was it. "Stay back, human!" one sentinel grunted, raising a hand. Noah was already gone. He wasn't a warrior. He was a janitor, a ghost. He knew how to move unseen, how to use chaos. He slipped from the alcove, a shadow, moving between screaming, panicked delegates. He vaulted a railing, dropping 10 feet to the main floor, rolling, and coming up in a dead sprint. "Seize him!" a guard shouted, finally seeing him. He was fast, but they were in his path. Two sentinels lowered their plasma pikes, moving to intercept. The crowd screamed and parted. Noah ran straight at them. The sentinels raised their weapons. And Noah Hale, the human janitor, revealed his true power. He pushed. He didn't touch them. He focused his implant, his resonant ability, and unleashed a tight, controlled burst of kinetic energy. It was not a psychic blast. It was a physical shove, amplified through his unique biology. The sentinels, weighing half a ton each, were thrown backward, as if hit by a speeding vehicle crashing into a row of delegates. The hall stared in stunned silence. Noah didn't slow. He leaped onto the stage, skidding to a halt. Aratus was on her knees, shaking violently, blood trickling from her nose. She was seconds from a complete mental collapse, her mind tearing itself apart under the strain of the warring signals. "Aratus!" he yelled. She looked up, her eyes unfocused, seeing only the monsters that were clawing at her. "Get away from her, terrorist!" the Sentinel captain roared from the stage steps. Noah ignored him. He had 1 second. He lunged forward, grabbing her, his hands clamping on either side of her head. He pressed his forehead to hers. "I've got you." He roared not with his voice, but with his mind. He poured every ounce of his will, his implant, flaring to life. "You're not alone. Come with me now." He did not create a shield. He created a gateway. He pulled her consciousness, her very self, out of her body, anchoring it to his own. In the physical world, 2 plasma blasts fired, striking the spot where they had been. But they were already gone. Their bodies stood stock still, eyes rolled back, white and vacant. They were physically present, but their minds were somewhere else entirely. Aratus opened her eyes. She was no longer in the Great Hall. She was in a corridor. It was the Aurora Spire, but wrong. The walls were made of dark, swirling mist. The polished marble floor was a mosaic of whispering, contorted faces. The light from the nebula outside the windows was a sickly, burning green. "Where are we?" she stammered, pulling her royal robes around her. "The dream field," a voice said. She turned. Noah stood behind her. He looked normal. He was in his black silk uniform, though. It was now soaked from a rain she hadn't felt. He looked tired. "The psychic landscape," he clarified. "The battlefield. Your mind, my mind, and this damned engine. It's all mixed up here." A shriek echoed down the impossible corridor. Aratus flinched, seeing a shape coalesce from the misty walls. It was her father, the late emperor, but his face was a mask of judgment, his eyes burning coals. "You failed me," the construct whispered, its voice the sound of grinding stone. "You are weak. You let them win. You are nothing." "No," Aratus whispered, backing away, her old terror returning. The monster, a manifestation of Therix's control, lunged. "Oh, for—" Noah sighed. He stepped in front of her. The monster paused, confused by this new variable. Noah looked at his hands, then at the psychic monster. "This is getting ridiculous." He closed his eyes for a second, concentrating. He reached out, not with his hands, but with his will. He grabbed the essence of the place, the code of this dream, and pulled. A long wooden pole materialized in his hand, ending in a spray of synthetic fibers. Aratus stared, her fear momentarily eclipsed by sheer, staggering disbelief. "Are you fighting my psychic trauma with a mop?" Noah spun it, testing its weight. It felt good, familiar. "I'm a human," he said, not looking at her. "We're big on recycling tools. We use what's at hand. And I am at heart a janitor. Now stay behind me." "This is going to get messy," the father monster roared and lunged. Noah met the charge. He didn't swing the mop like a sword. He used it like a bow staff, like a tool. He jabbed the monster in its insubstantial chest, and the construct flickered, its form dissolving like chalk. "It's just programming," Noah yelled, planting the mop's handle on the floor. "It's a lie." From the other end of the hall, fire erupted. Pure, white-hot psychic rage. Sarah's attack. It came at them as a wave, burning the misty walls, incinerating the whispering faces on the floor. Noah swore, grabbing Aratus and pulling her into an alcove as the fire washed past. "What is that?" Aratus panted. "That," Noah said grimly, "is the other side. My side. The one that wants to burn this whole place down, you included." The fire licked at the walls, and as it did, it burned away a section of the dream corridor. The wall dissolved not into mist, but into a new scene. A memory. Aratus saw it. A gray sky raining ash. A city of glass and steel burning. Ships, Aurelian ships, hanging in the sky like gods of death. She saw a boy, a teenager, huddled in the ruins, his face dirty. His eyes wide with a grief so profound, it was a void. He was holding the hand of a woman who was no longer there, just a shape in the rubble. "Mom," the boy whispered. "Mom, get up." Aratus watched, horrified. "What is this? This is Earth." The scene shifted. The boy was older, harder, in a sterile, underground lab. Human scientists, their faces grim, surrounded him. He was strapped to a table. They were inserting a shimmering organic device into the base of his skull. "The implant is bonding," a human doctor said. "He is a resident, the only one to survive the procedure." "He will be our vengeance," said another. "He will go where we cannot. He will be our ghost, our blade. He will make the Aurelians pay for what they did to our world." The scene flashed again. A mission briefing. A hologram of the Aurora Spire, and in the center of her face. "Your target is the new Empress Aratus," a voice said. "Sarah Keene. She is unstable. The Whisper engine is your key. Get inside. Get her trust. And when the time is right, use the engine against her. Break her mind. Shatter the throne." The memory dissolved. Aratus turned her back, pressing against the dream wall. She looked at Noah, who was still warily watching the hallway, his mop held at the ready. The realization the betrayal hit her harder than any psychic blast. "You," she whispered, her voice breaking. "It was all a lie. You didn't save me. You were never here to save me." Her voice rose hysterical. "You came here to kill me." In the physical world in the Great Hall, Therix was screaming at his technicians. "They're linked. The bioscans are synchronized. Shoot him. Shoot the human, now." The Sentinel captain raised his pike, leveled it at Noah's vacant-eyed, unmoving body, and fired. The plasma blast, hot enough to melt steel, stopped. It hit a shimmering, invisible field, 1 inch from Noah's skin, and dissipated. The medical drone, which had zipped onto the stage, projected its findings. "Warning, synaptic resonance is 100%. Their vital signs are linked. Terminating the human will result in the immediate termination of the Empress." Therix slammed his fist on the console. He was trapped. The broadcast was a disaster. The Empress was catatonic, and he could not kill the human who had caused it all. "If I cannot have her, no one will," he snarled, his face a mask of pure reptilian malice. "Activate the failsafe. The core overload. Scramble the engine. I don't care if it's blunt. Wipe their minds. Wipe them both." "Chancellor," the technician cried, "that is irreversible. It will burn their consciousness to cinders." "Do it." In the dream field, Noah heard Aratus's accusation. He couldn't deny it. He turned to face her, his expression grim. "The mission got complicated." "Complicated?" she shrieked. You. She never finished. The world screamed. The green sky above them cracked. The misty walls disintegrated. A sound, a noise so loud, it was a physical weight pressed in on them. Tharix's failsafe. It appeared on the horizon of their minds, a tidal wave of pure, white, annihilating psychic energy. A mind wipe. It was not a weapon of control or rage. It was a weapon of erasure. It rushed toward them, vaporizing the last of the dream constructs, the fire, the whispers, the memories. There was only the wave. Noah's implant, the resonant device, screamed in his head. It gave him the data. It gave him the choice. He had 1 second. His mission flared in his mind. This is it. He could use this. He could grab this wave of energy, shape it, focus it with his implant, and ride it. He could let it pass him and pour it all into her. It would be the end of her. It would be the end of the war. It would be vengeance complete and final. He would be a hero. He would be the man who avenged Earth. Aratus saw the wave coming. She was paralyzed, staring at it, her face a mask of betrayal and terror. "You came here to kill me or to save me?" she screamed, the last question she would ever ask. Noah looked at the wave. He looked at her. He saw the boy in the rubble. He saw the Empress, who couldn't sleep. He saw the mission. He saw the woman. He made his choice. He didn't answer her. He acted. He grabbed her, not with his hands, but with his mind, and threw her. He pushed her consciousness back out of the way, shielding her behind his own. He turned to face the tidal wave of oblivion alone. He planted his feet. He raised the stupid, symbolic, magnificent mop, not as a weapon, but as a shield. "We humans!" He roared the words, echoing only in the space between their minds. "We are really, really good at one thing." He took the full, unadulterated, mind-shattering blast, head on, taking the hit for people we care about. The wave struck him. It was a supernova of white, hot pain. He felt his implant, his mind, his memories, his very self being burned, scorched, and torn apart. He took it all. He held the line. He did not break. In the great hall, Aratus gasped. Her eyes snapped open, clearing, sharp and lucid. She was her. She was on her knees, breathing hard, but she was whole. In front of her, Noah Hale crumpled. The psychic shield dropped. He fell to his knees, his body shaking, blood pouring from his nose and ears. He looked up, his eyes unfocused, finding hers for a single agonizing second, before he collapsed face down on the stage. The broadcast was still live. The galaxy had seen it all. The hall was in absolute chaos. Sentinels were trying to restore order. Delegates were screaming. Therix's voice, shaking with rage, boomed over the speakers. He attacked the Empress. The human as the terrorist sees him. Sentinels, their programming finally finding a clear order, converged on Noah's unconscious body. They hauled him up, his arms limp, and bound him in glowing energy cuffs. In the human ghetto, Sarah Keene watched a fractured feed. "He saved her," she whispered, her face pale. "He saved her. The traitor." On the stage, Erida's still on her knees, her mind clear, looked at the chaos. She looked at the bound, bleeding form of the man who had come to kill her and who had just saved her life at the cost of his own mind. She looked at the control booth where Therix stood, his face a mask of fury. She knew. The Sentinels began to drag Noah away. Aratus pushed herself to her feet. She was shaking, covered in sweat, but her voice raw and filled with a new terrifying authority cut through the entire hall. "Stop!" she screamed. The Sentinels paused. "I said stop," she pointed a trembling royal finger at the guards. "Do not kill him. Do not kill him." The holding cell was not gray. That was the first thing Noah noticed. It was a perfect, seamless white. The light was white, the floor was white, the walls were white, and the single cot was white. It was the kind of white that was designed to erase shadows, definitions, and after a while sanity. He was strapped to a simple white chair in the center of the room. His new cuffs were not metal. They were a pair of shimmering, semi-transparent bands around his wrists. They were neural inhibitors. He could feel them, a cold, dull weight, not on his skin, but inside his mind. His implant, his resonant power was still there, but it was like trying to shout through a 6-foot-thick wall of cotton. He had been interrogated for, he guessed, 3 days. Time was a fluid concept in a room with no clock and a light that never dimmed. They sent in a rotating cast of inquisitors. A stern scale general. A multi-limbed wheezing doctor who monitored his vitals. A thin, rod-like being who claimed to be a telepath. The telepath was the most amusing. He had spent an hour trying to breach Noah's mind, only to recoil, his translucent skin pale. "It is a void," the telepath had hissed. "He has no mind. It is burned out." Noah, whose mind was perfectly fine, just very, very tired and shielded by the last dregs of his implant's power, had offered a helpful smile. "Or maybe you're just bad at your job." Now his main interrogator was in the room, Grand Chancellor Therix. "Your name is Noah Hale," Therix stated, his voice a low, gravelly monotone. He was reading from a data slate. "You have no family, no education. You are by all metrics a non-entity, and yet you disabled 2 Imperial Sentinels with a force unknown to us. You entered a synaptic resonance with the Empress, and you survived a direct full-power psychic overload from the core engine. This suggests a discrepancy." Noah leaned his head back against the chair's support. His body ached. His head felt like it was full of angry bees. "You missed one," Noah said, his voice hoarse. "I also mop floors. I'm very, very good at mopping floors. You should see my work on the gamma-level coolant spills. It's art." Tharix's cold, reptilian eyes did not blink. "You are a spy for the human underground. I'm a janitor. You're the ones who gave me a promotion. If you have a complaint, file it with HR." "Your sarcasm is a symptom of your species' inherent emotional instability," Tharix said, as if reciting a textbook. "It is also, in this case, a confession." "Take it however you want, Scales," Noah sighed. "Look, are we done here? You've got the wrong guy. I just clean blood better than I spill it. You're looking for a terrorist. I'm just the guy who got caught holding the mop, or in this case, the Empress." A flash of anger, cold and sharp, crossed Tharix's face. "You will remain here until you are cooperative, or until your biology fails. I am indifferent as to which comes first." The Chancellor turned and left the room, the white door sealing with a perfect, silent hiss. Noah was left alone again in the white. The sarcastic mask dropped. His head throbbed not just from the neural inhibitors, but from a deep, gnawing anxiety. He had taken the hit. He remembered the white light, the pain. He had shielded her. But what happened after he remembered her scream? "Do not kill him." Was she safe? Or had he, in his grand, stupid, heroic gesture, simply left her defenseless, surrounded by the very monsters he had come to fight? He had no way of knowing. He could only feel the cold thrum of the inhibitors and wait his own thoughts, his only company. And they were not at the moment very good company at all. Eritis was a prisoner in her own palace. The morning after the disastrous ceremony, the Supreme Council had convened an emergency session. Tharix, his composure regained, had painted a masterful picture. "Your Majesty," he had said, his voice full of false sympathy. "It is clear you are still unwell. The influence of the human terrorist has left you vulnerable. He has manipulated your mind, poisoned your judgment. The attack was a joint effort between him and the human underground to assassinate you and destabilize the entire Dominion." "He saved my life," Eritis had said, her voice a low, cold fury. "He created the crisis," Tharix had countered smoothly. "He triggered the psychic event, knowing it would link you, and then absorbed the blow in a theatrical gesture to win your trust completely. He is a resonant, a class of human psychic warrior we believed long extinct. He is dangerous beyond measure." They had voted. The motion passed 8-1. For her own protection, the decree read, "The Empress's executive powers are to be temporarily suspended pending a full psychic and medical evaluation. All state matters will be deferred to the Supreme Council under the guidance of the Grand Chancellor." She was in effect under house arrest. Her sentinels were replaced. Her personal aides were reassigned. She was isolated, cut off, and left to recover in her chambers. She was also, for the first time in her life, wide awake. The nightmares were back, of course. Without Noah, the dream field returned, though it was weaker now, unfocused, its primary weapon. Tharix now focused on governance, rather than dreams. But she did not sleep. She did not want to sleep. She wanted to work. Her public access to the Dominion archives was blocked. But she was still the Empress. And an Empress, even a suspended one, had protocols, back doors, secrets her father had taught her. For 3 days, while the court believed she was weeping in her rooms, Eritis was buried in the deep archives, the ones hidden behind layers of royal encryption. She wasn't looking for troop movements or trade ledgers. She was looking for one word. Whisper Engine. The file was classified above her father's own security level. It required a biometric scan, a voice print, and a retinal pattern she had to synthesize from her father's holographic records. The file opened. and the history of the Dominion unraveled. It was not an Aurelian device, not originally. It was a joint project dating back to the end of the war 90 years ago, a peace initiative. Its designers, a council of Aurelian scientists, and a human technology conglomerate, Terra Prime Dynamics. It was never meant to be a weapon. It was designed as a communications array, a way to use the natural psychic resonance of a star system to broadcast feelings of peace and shared culture. A song, the Human Files called it. Then the war turned. Humanity lost. Terra Prime was shattered. The Aurelian military seized the project. The files became darker. The project was moved, buried in the core of the new Aurora Spire. The lead scientist, a human, named Dr. Eris Thorne, was listed as deceased, project accident. But Aratus found a subroutine, a hidden log. Thorne had tried to destroy his own creation. They are inverting it, Thorne's last entry read. They are not broadcasting peace. They are turning it into a suppression field, a tool of control. They are using my work to whisper, to create fear, dependency, obedience. I have failed. I have given them the tool to enslave the galaxy, starting with their own people. May God, if there is one, forgive me. Aratus sat back, her blood running cold. Therix hadn't just used the engine on her. He and his predecessors had been using it for generations, to control the imperial line, to keep their heirs docile, to keep the populace subdued. The death of her father, his heart failure, was recontextualized. He had been questioning the council. He had been unstable. She was not the first prisoner of this throne. She was just the latest. She now had the truth. She had the motive. She had the proof. But the man who was the key to it all, the man who was himself a ghost of that same human technology, was locked in a white room, and she had no power to free him. On the fourth day, the white walls of Noah's cell flickered. A line of static, like a crack in reality, appeared on the wall opposite him. It resolved into a face. Sarah Keene. Her image was grainy, her voice a compressed hiss. She was hijacking the prison's internal feed, a move that was both incredibly bold and incredibly stupid. "You're a traitor, Noah," she said. No greeting, no preamble. Noah, who had been trying to mentally catalog the exact number of ventilation holes in the ceiling, looked up. "Sarah, nice to see you too. Love what you've done with your hair. Very revolutionary." You had him. Therix, the council, the entire power structure. You had them in your hand. Your mission was to break the system. You saved it. My mission was to break her, Noah corrected, his voice quiet, all sarcasm gone. And I didn't. I take it the burn them all plan didn't work out. You cut us off, she hissed. You shielded her. You locked us out of the psychic link. We had to abort. The Spire is on lockdown. We lost 3 operatives just getting this signal. All because you, our ultimate weapon, decided what fall in love with the target. It's not love, Noah said, rubbing his temples, the inhibitors making his thoughts feel thick. I don't know. It's complicated. Complicated, she scoffed. They killed our families, Noah. They burned our world. They put us in chains and called us animals. And you had the Empress of those animals at your mercy, and you let her go. What you wanted wasn't justice, Sarah. It was just our turn. It was the same damned crime with a different victim. It was just repeating the cycle. I'm tired of the cycle. The cycle is all we have, she yelled. The only way to end it is to win. You were a resonant. You were our hope. And you threw it all away for her. No, Noah said, standing up, his voice suddenly hard. I threw it away for me. I threw it away because I wasn't going to be the monster you wanted me to be. I wasn't going to be the one to light the fire just to prove we could burn too. Sarah stared at him, her expression unreadable. Therix will kill you. And if he doesn't, we will. You're a traitor to both sides, Noah. You're alone. The image vanished. Noah stood in the white room, the silence rushing back in. "Alone," he whispered. "Yeah, sounds about right." That night, the door to his cell opened. He expected a guard. He expected Therix. He did not expect her. Aratus slipped in, followed by a tall, scarred sentinel captain. The captain, Noah noted, was not one of the usual palace guards. This one wore the insignia of the Outer Rim Fleet, and he was looking very pointedly at the wall. "You have 5 minutes, Your Majesty," the Captain Rylan said, his voice a low rumble. "Then I am logging a security breach, which I will then report myself as having dealt with." "Thank you, Captain," Aratus said. The door hissed shut, leaving them alone. She was not in her robes. She wore the simple, functional fatigues of a spire technician. Her hair was pulled back. She looked like a person, a very tired, very angry person. They stared at each other for a long, heavy moment. "You're a terrible spy," she said finally, her voice flat. "I was a great janitor," he countered. "The spy thing was a bit of a career change. You look well, less on fire." "My executive powers have been suspended. The Council has me under protective observation. Tharix is running the Dominion. You, it seems, are a terrorist. And I am a fool. That about sums it up." "Sounds busy," Noah said. He couldn't help it. The sarcasm was his only shield, but it faltered as he looked at her. "Are you okay?" The question, the simple human concern, seemed to break something in her. Her facade of cold anger cracked. "No," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I am not. I saw your memories, Noah, in the dream field. I saw what they did to your world. And I saw what you were supposed to be," he replied just as quietly. "The mission, the briefing, break her mind." "So it was all true," she said. She wasn't asking. From the beginning, the falling, the catching, the nights of talking, it was all an act. To get my trust. To get close to the weapon. He couldn't lie. He couldn't even deflect. That was the mission. She nodded a sharp, angry motion as if to sting back tears. "And then what? At the end in the hall, you saw the wave, the fail-safe. You had your choice. You could have done it. You could have finished your mission. Why didn't you?" Noah looked away at the white walls, at the scars on his knuckles. "I told you, I'm tired of the cycle." "That's not an answer," she cried, stepping forward, her hands clenched. "I saw your mind. I saw the hate. You came here to kill me." "Yes," he shouted back, his own control, snapping the inhibitors be damned. "Yes, I did. I came here to hurt you. I came here to make you pay for all of it, for my family, for my world, for 3 generations of being treated like dirt." He was breathing hard, the admission hanging in the sterile air. "I came here to kill an Empress," he said, his voice dropping, his anger spent. "A symbol. A monster in a palace. And I found you. A terrified kid who couldn't sleep. A prisoner in your own chair. I found a person, Aratus, and I couldn't." He sank back onto the cot, the energy draining from him. "I couldn't be the man who murdered a person. I'm already the man who helped build the weapon. That's enough sin for 1 lifetime." Aratus stared at him, her own anger dissolving into a cold, profound shock. "What did you say? You helped build it." This was the part he hadn't wanted to face, but he was done with lies. "The Whisper Engine. My implant is the resonant tech. They're related, from the same project, Terra Prime Dynamics." He didn't look at her. He looked at the floor. "I was a prodigy, a kid. They told me we were building a peace engine, a way to end the war, to make us understand each other. I designed the core interface, the part that bonds to a resonant, me. And then they took it. They inverted it. They sold the data and the blueprints to your people, to make the war stop. And your scientists turned it into this, into a whisper, into a nightmare." He finally looked up, his face, a mask of old, deep-set guilt. "So, yes, I came here to destroy it, and you, for vengeance and for penance. Because it's my fault, all of it. Aridus stood in the center of the White Room, the entire history of the last 90 years clicking into place. The human spy, the terrified Empress, the ancient shared guilt. So, she said, her voice barely a whisper, my people corrupted your father's work, and you bear the guilt of your or my ancestors. We are both trapped by the same machine. He nodded, too tired to speak. She sat on the chair he had vacated. She looked at him no longer as an empress or a target or a human. Just like him. You admitted you came here to kill me, she said, her voice cold and level. I did, he confirmed. And now? Noah looked at her. At her technician's clothes, at the resolve in her eyes, at the woman who had just heard the worst truths of her life and had not broken. A slow, tired, half-broken smile touched his lips. Now, he said, his voice laced with a humor so dark it was almost black. Now it's a lot more complicated. A ghost of a smile answered him. Good, because I have a plan. And it's complicated too. She told him what she had found. The Terra Prime files, the corruption, the log from Dr. Eris Thorne. Therix thinks he's in control, she said, her voice hardening, the Empress returning. But he's just another operator. He's not the administrator. The engine has a core, a physical biological interface, the one you designed. Eris Thorne's interface, Noah breathed, the pieces falling into place. He tried to destroy it. He must have built a failsafe. He did, she said. A total system reset. A true one. Not a mind wipe, but a release. It's designed to broadcast the truth. All of it. The original files, the unedited logs, the history of its own corruption. It's intended to broadcast it to the entire Dominion. A truth bomb. Noah whispered, a wild, dangerous hope sparking in his chest. It would destroy the Council. It would end the lies. But it can only be activated from the core interface, Aradis said, by a verified resonant, by you. Noah looked down at the neural inhibitors on his wrists. There's a slight problem with that. These things are not coming off. I can't remove them, Aradis said, but I can have you moved. I've been studying Therix. He's arrogant. He believes he's won. He believes I am broken, and you are his prisoner. He's also curious. He wants to know how your implant works. He wants to control the resonant technology for himself. She leaned forward. Tomorrow I am going to use the last shred of my authority. I am going to sign an order. I will demand as my last-ditch effort to heal that you be taken for a full-spectrum psychic evaluation. And the only place on the Spire with that kind of equipment is the core lab. The room right next to the Whisper Engine's interface. It was insane. It was brilliant. It was, Noah thought, a very human-style plan. Therix will be suspicious, Noah said, testing the logic. He will, she agreed, which is why he will allow it. He'll send his own guards. He'll monitor everything. He'll see it as a chance to finally dissect you to get the secrets he wants. He won't know we are working together. He won't know about the failsafe. It's a one-way trip, isn't it? Noah said. We walk in there, we don't walk out. Not as we are. It is an all-or-nothing gamble, she said, her gaze steady. We are both traitors, Noah. You to your people. Me to mine. The human underground wants you dead. The Supreme Council wants me deposed. We are stuck, caught between two tides of hate. The only way out is through. He stood up. She stood with him. They were inches apart, the white light of the cell casting no shadows. So, he said, we're going to walk into the lion's den, to throw a truth bomb, to try and fix a 90-year-old crime. And we're going to be surrounded by guards who want to kill us, working for a man who wants to dissect us. And we'll probably fail. Probably, she agreed. Just a fantastic plan. No notes. The door behind Aradis hissed. Captain Ryland's head appeared. Your Majesty, time's up. 1 moment, Aratus said, not taking her eyes off Noah. The silence stretched. The unspoken things filled the room, the nights she had slept in his arms, the betrayal, the shared guilt, the terror. After the ceremony, she said, her voice suddenly achingly vulnerable, "The nightmares are back. I can't sleep." "I'm sorry," he said, and he meant it. "But it's different now." She took a small, shaky breath. "Before my heart would race in the dark because of the nightmares. Now, even when I am wide awake, it races when I think of you." He had no answer. He had no sarcasm left. He just saw her. "Noah," she whispered, "if we do this, if we fail—" "We fail," he said, his voice rough. "But we fail together. We fail right. And we take Therix with us." He smiled, a genuine, if tired, Noah Hale smile. "And if we don't fail, you're going to need a new night attendant. And my rates, they've just gone way, way up." A small, surprised laugh escaped her. "Is that a human joke?" "It's a side effect," he said, his smile softening. "Hanging around humans too long, you start to get a really, really terrible sense of humor. I'll keep that in mind. Aratus," she turned at the door, "try to get some rest. We've got a big day tomorrow." She nodded. The door hissed shut, and Noah Hale was alone again in the white. But for the first time in his life, he wasn't. The core lab was not a lab. It was a cathedral. It was a vast, cavernous space at the lowest, most shielded point of the Aurora Spire. The only light came from the thing in the center, the whisper engine. It was not a machine of metal and wires. It was a living, breathing architecture of crystal and light, a kilometer-wide lattice that pulsed with a soft, sickening violet-colored energy. It was beautiful, and it was the most monstrous thing Noah had ever seen. He stood on an observation platform, flanked by 4 of Therix's personal sentinels. The neural inhibitors on his wrists were still active, but they felt weak here, the air itself thrumming with a psychic energy that made his teeth ache. He could hear it. It was not a sound but a feeling, 1,000 million billion whispers all coiling around his mind, trying to find a way in. Weak. Failure. Alone. Aratus was with him. She too was flanked by guards. She wore the mask of the submissive, recovering Empress perfectly. Her hands were clasped, her eyes downcast. But Noah could feel the tension radiating from her, a wire drawn taut, ready to snap. "It is magnificent, is it not?" Grand Chancellor Therix emerged from the shadows of the platform. He was not in his formal robes, but in a functional military-style tunic. He looked for the first time like a warlock rather than a politician. "For 90 years, Therix said, his voice a low, proud rumble, "this has been the true throne of the Dominion. Not the amethyst chair upstairs, but this, the engine." He gestured to the pulsing heart of the machine. "My great-grandfather used it to encourage loyalty in the Outer Rim worlds. My father used it to ensure the compliance of the wartime allies. And I have used it to maintain the purity of the Imperial line." He turned his cold reptilian gaze on Aratus. "Your father became emotional, unstable. He began to question the hard decisions. The engine corrected that. A simple simulated heart failure, just as it was meant to correct you." Aratus, playing her part, flinched. "You killed him." "I cured him," Therix snapped. "I cured the dominion of a weak leader, just as I was curing it of you until this pest interfered." He turned his full attention to Noah. "The human resonant, a ghost from a dead war. I have read the old files. I know what you were, what your peace engine was meant to be. It was a pathetic, emotional human idea. We made it practical." "So, this is it?" Noah asked, his voice hoarse, the inhibitors on his wrists feeling like they were on fire. "The grand plan you whisper in the Empress's ear to keep her scared so you can run the show." Therix laughed, a dry, rasping sound. "You seem so small. You are a janitor. You think in terms of cleaning one room. I am an architect. He pointed to the pulsing core. The ceremony was only the beginning. That was a test. Now, with the data I've gathered from you from your chaotic, powerful, uncontrolled implant, I can do so much more. I will not just control the Empress. I will expand the field. The Spire first, then the sector, then the entire Dominion. One mind, one will. One voice. My voice. No more war, no more rebellion, no more dissent. Only peace. A perfect, obedient, eternal peace. That's not peace, Aratus whispered, her voice shaking with a genuine, unfeigned horror. That's erasure. That, Theric said, is semantics. He looked at Noah. But first I must understand my new tool, the resonant. I want to know how you survived. I want to know what you are. He nodded to the guards. Take him, put him in the diagnostic scanner, the one nearest the core. I want to see what happens when we remove the inhibitors. The sentinels grabbed Noah's arms. This was it. The gamble. They marched him off the platform down a glass causeway, right to the edge of the pulsing crystalline heart. A chair, a cold metal and glass diagnostic chair, waited. They slammed him into it, strapping his arms and legs but leaving his cuffed hands free in his lap. Remove the inhibitors, Therix's voice commanded over an intercom. A guard pressed a device to the cuffs. The cold, dull pressure in Noah's mind vanished. And his implant, his resonant power, free for the first time in this place, screamed as it met the raw, unshielded power of the engine. He arched in the chair, a cry of pure agony tearing from his throat. The whispers, the billions of whispers slammed into his mind. Hate, fear, obey, submit. Chancellor, a technician's voice yelled. The energy readings are off the scale he's interfacing. Good, Therix's voice purred. Let him. I want to see everything. Noah was drowning. He was in an ocean of raw, unfiltered psychic energy. The engine was trying to absorb him to make him another one of its whispers. He needed an anchor. He needed her. Aratus. He yelled the name, a physical, desperate act. On the platform, Aratus broke free. The evaluation requires the subject's baseline, my presence. She lied, her voice a perfect echo of imperial command. She ran past her stunned guards down the causeway. She skidded to a halt in front of his chair, her hands finding his, grabbing his cuffed, shaking fingers. Noah, I'm here. Hold on. He looked at her. His eyes unfocused, pupils dilated. It's too much. It recognizes you, a technician shouted. The core, it's accepting his biosignature. Who is he? Tharix was silent, watching the data feeds, his face, a mask of avaricious wonder. And then Noah touched the chair's metal console. The moment his skin linked to hers, linked to the implant, touched the engine's interface, the world stopped. The whispers, the noise, the pain, all vanished, replaced by a single clear synthetic voice that spoke not in the air, but inside his head. Welcome, Architect 7. Noah gasped, his eyes clearing. What did you call me? Architect 7, Noah Hale. Project Resonant Song. Status, 93 years, 4 months, 12 days dormant. On the platform, Therix saw the logs. Architect, what does that mean? In Noah's mind, the truth, the plot twist he had confessed but not truly understood, bloomed in its full, agonizing detail. He saw himself, a boy, a 14-year-old child prodigy at Terra Prime Dynamics a lifetime ago. Not just an architect, the one who designed the core interface. He saw his own hands, small and young, building the prototype of the resonant implant. He saw the scientists, his parents, among them, praising him. He saw the file. Eris Thorn. It wasn't Eris. It was an Aurelian mistranslation of his father's file, A. Hale Progenitor, N. Hale Architect. His father had been the lead scientist. He had been the key. He saw the day the project was sold, betrayed to the Aurelians. He saw his parents trying to activate the failsafe being gunned down by their own human security bought and paid for. He saw himself the last resonant, The only architect smuggled out his mind, seared his past, buried under a mountain of trauma, and a new, fabricated identity. He hadn't helped build the weapon. He had invented it. His entire life, his vengeance, his mission with the underground, wasn't just for his world. It was to correct the sin he believed he had set in motion. He was not a tool of the underground. He was on a mission. "This system is yours." Architect 7, the engine's voice, whispered smooth and seductive. "The usurpers have perverted your song. They have made it a whisper." The engine's core flared. "You can correct it. You have full administrative access. The failsafe is one option. But there is another." A new world of possibilities opened in his mind. He saw the network. He saw the Dominion not as a map, but as a web of living minds. He could feel them. "Merge with me, architect. They took your song. Let us give them your symphony. A symphony of justice, of revenge." He felt the power. Absolute power. He could make Therix crawl. He could make the entire Supreme Council beg for a death that would not come. He could find Sarah and give her the bloody victory she had dreamed of. He could make every Aurelian who had ever looked down on a human feel that pain for 1,000 years. He could bring the entire corrupt, arrogant empire to its knees. He could win. A tiny, desperate signal crackled at the edge of his consciousness. Sarah. She had felt his power flare. "Noah, Noah, is that you? What is this? It's everything. Take it. Take it and burn them." On the platform, Therix saw the energy shift, saw the power coalescing around the human. "He's taking control!" The Chancellor roared, a new, terrified greed in his voice. "He will be a god. Guard, stop him. No, wait, seize him. That power belongs to the Dominion. It belongs to me." The Sentinels raised their weapons, confused their orders, conflicting. Noah stood in the eye of the storm, the ultimate temptation. The power to end all his pain, to deliver the vengeance he had craved his entire life. He looked at the two monsters, trying to claim his power. Sarah, the freedom fighter, who had become a terrorist. Therix, the politician who had become a tyrant. Both screaming for him to use his power to destroy. Then he looked down. Aratus was still clinging to his hands. She was staring at him, her face pale, her eyes wide. She had seen it all. She had felt his temptation, his rage, his past. She knew what he was, what he could do. She did not command him. She did not beg. She just looked at him, her grip tightening on his fingers, and said, her voice, a raw, quiet plea that cut through the noise of gods and monsters. "Noah, please. Just do what a real human would do." He looked at her. A real human. What did that mean? It meant being a janitor. It meant being a spy. It meant being flawed and broken and full of guilt. It meant knowing how to take a hit. And it meant knowing when not to. He looked back at the core. He looked at Sarah's burning rage, at Therix's cold ambition. He looked at Aratus's desperate, terrifying hope. He had built this machine to create understanding, not obedience, not terror. He let go of the power. He let go of the rage. "No," he whispered. He turned to the engine's core, his voice a clear, ringing command that was no longer human but something more. "Interface, this is Architect 7. I am not merging. I am not taking control. I am resigning." "Architect!" The voice was confused. "You are a perversion," Noah said, his voice hard. "You are a lie, and I am done with lies." He raised his hands, his fingers flying over a console that was not physical, but psychic. He was not using the power. He was directing it. Activating failsafe Eris Thorn. Protocol truth. Broadcast all files. All logs. The Terra Prime initiative, the betrayal. The murder of my father. The corruption of the engine. Therix's orders. The heart failure of the late Emperor. Everything. Broadcast it now to every comm, every screen in all 13 systems. "That protocol is locked," the engine warned. "I'm the architect," Noah snarled. "Unlock it. He slammed his will into the machine. Failsafe unlocking. Broadcasting now. Warning. Failsafe protocol includes system core self-destruction. Estimated time to overload 90 seconds. He's done it! Therix shrieked, his face white with terror, as his own data slate lit up with the files being broadcast. He's telling them. He's telling everyone, shut him down, kill them both. The sentinels on the platform raised their pikes. But before they could fire Captain Rylan, the man who had escorted Aratus drew his own sidearm and blasted the 2 guards in the back. No, Chancellor, Rylan's voice boomed. I think we're going to listen. In the core, the engine was thrumming, the violet light shifting to a burning, angry red. The overload was beginning. The psychic static in the room was rising, a tidal wave of uncontrolled energy. Warning, core breach. Full synaptic overload imminent. Evacuate. We have to go, Aratus yelled, pulling on his hand. Noah, we did it. Now we have to go. But Noah was frozen. He was still linked. I can't. The failsafe, it's not just a broadcast. It's the detonation. It's a psychic bomb. It's Sarah's plan all over again. It's just going to kill everyone on the spire. He looked at her, his face pale with a new dawning horror. I just doomed us all. I didn't know. 30 seconds to overload, the engine intoned. He had one last choice. He had one last terrible idea. Noah, what are you doing? Oratus cried as he turned back to the console. Being a janitor, he said. I made this mess. I'm cleaning it up. He placed his hands on the interface. Engine, I'm still an architect. Remerge. Now full bond. Merging warning. Merge conflicted with destruct sequence. I know. Noah roared as the full, screaming, dying power of the whisper engine poured into his body. It was not the cold, seductive power from before. It was sunny. It was on fire. It was all the energy of the overload, all the dying screams of the machine, all the psychic backlash. And he was sucking it all into himself. He was the lightning rod. He was the ground. He was taking the hit not for a person, but for the entire station. Noah! Aratus screamed as he was lifted from the chair, suspended in a column of pure white light, his body arching in an agony beyond words. His implant, his beautiful, terrible creation was burning. It was frying, acting as a buffer, a dam, sacrificing itself to contain the blast. He felt his memories, his past, his guilt, all of it being seared away, burned clean. Aratus. He gasped, the words tearing from his throat, the last thought in his mind. He reached for her. She ran to him. She didn't care about the light, the power, the fire. She ran into the storm and wrapped her arms around his convulsing body, holding on. The explosion found its ground. It passed through him, through her, and into the station's core, harmlessly dissipating as heat and light. In the middle of the storm, as his mind was being wiped clean, he held her. His implant was gone. The engine was dying. The power was fading. He looked down at her, his eyes just for a second clear. You know, he whispered, his voice a scorched, broken thing. If I forget all of this, you have to remember to remind me I just used to mop your floors. And then, as the last light of the engine died, his eyes rolled back and he went limp in her arms, unconscious. The silence in the core lab was total. The whisper engine was dark. The whispers were gone. For the first time in 90 years, the Aurora spire was quiet. Aratus just knelt on the floor, holding the unconscious man in her arms, and for the first time in her life she wept. The aftermath was efficient. The truth bomb had done its work. Trillions of citizens had seen the files. The Dominion was in chaos. On the Aurora spire, Captain Rylan had placed a stunned, sputtering Grand Chancellor Therix under arrest for treason murder, and as Rylan put it, just generally being a subspecies-level disgrace. The Supreme Council, their own names splashed across the secret ledgers, was dissolved in less than an hour. Into this power vacuum, Aratus walked. She was not the night attendant's pet. She was not the suspended Empress. She was the woman who had been at ground zero of the truth. She broadcast from the amethyst throne not 2 hours later. She was still in her technician's fatigues, her hair a mess, Noah's blood on her sleeve. She did not make a speech. She made a promise. "The Aurelian Dominion is dead," she said, her voice echoing across 13 systems. "It was built on a lie and it has died by the truth. What comes next, we will build together. All of us." She announced the immediate, unconditional end of all human servitude acts. She called for a new constitutional assembly, with delegates from all 41 species, including, she stated, a new voting delegation from the human underground, who will now be recognized as a formal political party. She announced the complete dismantlement of the Whisper Engine. The Empire was dead. A new alliance was painfully being born. Noah awoke 3 days later in a room. It was not white. It was soft gray and quiet. The light was from a real window looking out at the nebula. Aratus was asleep in a chair by his bed. "Hey," he said. His voice was a croak. She was awake instantly, her eyes wide, her hand flying to his. "Noah, you're here," he said. He felt empty. He felt light. He sat up. The headache that had been his companion for his entire adult life was gone. The implant was gone. The whispers were gone. "My head," he said, touching the base of his skull. "It's quiet." "The implant was destroyed," she said, her voice gentle. "It burned out, containing the overload. The doctors said you're just you." He looked at her. He saw her, really saw her. He remembered the cell. He remembered the core. He remembered the feel of her hands in his. "Aratus," he said. "The files, my past, my father." "We know," she said, her grip on his hand tightening. "We know everything. The Alliance is digging through the archives. You're a hero, Noah." To both sides. "I'm not a hero," he said, shaking his head. "I'm just the man who built the bomb. And then I guess I was the one who had to fall on it." He looked around the room. "This is nice. Not a cell. Not a palace. Just a room." "It's my new chambers," she said, a small, shy smile touching her lips. "I gave up the Imperial penthouse. It was too much. Too loud." He smiled back. "Good call." The new Alliance Council was a noisy, chaotic, wonderful mess. Sarah Keene, now a delegate, argued with Captain Rylan, now a military advisor, every single day. And Aratus, as the acting chancellor, mediated. It was, Noah noted, a lot like a family argument. He was, by his own request, no longer Architect 7 or a resonant. He was, by official decree, Noah Hale, chief advisor to the chancellor. But his other title was private. That night, in her simple, quiet chambers, Aratus sat at her desk going over agricultural reports. She was tired. The nightmares were gone, but the work was hard. Noah came in holding 2 mugs. "Tea," he said. "Human. You'll hate it. It's good for you." She took it, smiling. "Thank you, advisor." "Anytime, Chancellor." She worked for another hour, and then, finally, she rubbed her eyes, a deep, weary sigh escaping her. Noah, who had been reading a data slate on the room's single comfortable couch, looked up. He didn't say anything. He just put his slate down and opened his arms. Aratus looked at him. The smile that crossed her face was no longer that of an empress or a prisoner or a chancellor. It was just hers. She went to him, shedding her robes of state, and curled up in his arms, her head fitting perfectly in its new familiar place on his chest. Within seconds, her breathing deepened. She was asleep. He just mops floors, Noah thought, looking out the window at the swirling, endless beauty of the nebula. He was just a man who had built a weapon, and then by chance found the person who made him want to build a shield instead. In a galaxy Full of super weapons of psychic powers and ancient warring empires, the single most powerful force in the universe, he decided was just this: a man, a woman, a quiet room. The decision to not take revenge. And the simple, profound, and revolutionary act of a good night's sleep, safe, in the arms of someone you trusted. He was no longer a ghost. He was an anchor, and he was finally at peace.